Lesson 83 of A Course in Miracles, the workbook. This is a review lesson. We've done lesson 81 and lesson 82. I'll just read. Lesson 81 is, each one of these review lessons is only 2 lessons. The first review was 5 lessons. This one is 2. So lesson 81 is, I am the light of the world. And then forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Lesson 82, the light of the world brings peace to every mind through my forgiveness. And then let me not forget my function. Let me not forget my function. Today is, my only function is the one God gave me, and my happiness and my function are one. Now these are all reviews of lessons that came before. Basically lessons 61 through 66, I believe, is what we're talking about. So let's read today, lesson 83. Today, let us review these ideas. The first one is lesson 65. My only function is the one God gave me. And this is Jesus' commentary now. I have no function but the one God gave me. This recognition releases me from all conflict because it means I cannot have conflicting goals. With one purpose only, I am always certain what to do, what to say, and what to think. All doubt must disappear as I acknowledge that my only function is the one God gave me. More specific applications of this idea might take these forms. My perception of this does not change my function. This does not give me a function other than the one God gave me. Let me not use this to justify a function God did not give me. All right, and then the next one is lesson 66. My happiness and my function are one. My happiness and my function are one. Commentary. All things that come from God are one. They come from oneness and must be received as one. Fulfilling my function is my happiness because both come from the same source. And I must learn to recognize what makes me happy if I would find happiness. Some useful forms for specific applications of this idea are, this cannot separate my happiness from my function. The oneness of my happiness and my function remains wholly unaffected by this. Nothing, including this, can justify the illusion of happiness apart from my function. All right. That's lesson 83. Let's go through it. We'll go through piece by piece here. So the first one is lesson 65. My only function is the one God gave me. Let's just talk about the word function for a moment. Function is a little bit of an interesting word choice. It's a little bit maybe off-putting, the term, unless you think of fun and funky as part of function, right? But otherwise, function is a weird term, I think. But it just means my only purpose, my only goal, my only purpose, my only job, the only thing I really have to do is to accept the atonement, right? And I accept the atonement through practicing forgiveness. The forgiveness work makes me become more and more accepting of the idea that when I forgive my brother, I recognize that my brother is not guilty. He is not separate from me, or she is not separate from me, because your brother, could be a man or a woman, could be anyone. Brother really means anyone other than you. You're the broken other. Brother, right? The broken other is the brother. So you remember that through forgiveness, through the practice of forgiveness, you start to warm up to the idea that we are not separate, right? And there really is no separation, and that we really all want the same thing. We all have the same goal. We all have the same purpose. Everyone here is looking for themselves. Everyone is looking for love. You could say everyone is looking for God. It all comes to the same thing: self, God, love. They're all really pointing to the same idea. My only function is the one God gave me. I have no function but the one God gave me. This recognition releases me from all conflict because it means I cannot have conflicting goals. With one purpose only, right? I have one goal, I have one purpose. I can't have conflict when I only have one purpose. I am always certain what to do. With one purpose only, I am always certain what to do, what to say, and what to think. What to do, what to say, and what to think. So my thoughts, my words, and my actions all line up because I am, on this path towards this goal. And the goal is to wake up, to awaken from the dream so that I may know what I really am. Because deep down, that's what I'm really seeking, is to understand the meaning of everything, right? Why are we even here? What's the purpose? What's the purpose of life? The meaning of life. Everyone wants to know, but it's not clear. No one sat us down at any time and said, well, here's why you're here. I'll tell you exactly why you're here and what's going on here. Now, the Course is giving us a blueprint, is basically saying, well, Jesus is saying, I can't give you the experience. That's something you have to choose. But I can explain to you where you're headed, right? You're going to find yourself. You're going to understand what is love. And that is your purpose. And you do that through the process of forgiveness, the practice of forgiveness. And that is what God established from eternity, right? Because we are one with God. And it's really just clearing away everything that's in the way of that realization that we are actually one with God. With one purpose only, I'm always certain what to do, what to say, and what to think. All doubt must disappear as I acknowledge that my only function is the one God gave me. More specific applications of this idea might take these forms, and this is all in italics. My perception of this does not change my function. So I may find something very upsetting. I may find something very disturbing. I may find what someone is doing to be not something I want to, that I feel like I can accept or forgive or anything like that. But we remind ourselves in that moment when we have a grievance that my perception of this does not change my function, right? Whether I like it or not, my function has not changed. Right? God has not changed. My function has not changed. So I could either, get with the program, or I could try to beat it, but I better wise up and join it because I can't beat it. This does not give me a function. This is in italics. This does not give me a function other than the one God gave me. And then let me not use this to justify a function God did not give me. So in other words, if I start to hold a grievance, or if I start to get upset, angry, judgmental, and try to justify that, to say I'm justified in feeling this way, I'm justified in holding this against this person, I'm justified in attacking them. We're just reminding ourselves, no, that I could do that, but I'm trying to justify something that can't be justified. Right? The only thing that will ever work and that will ever make sense and that will ever bring peace and happiness and joy is to accept the purpose that God gave me, or the function that God gave me. And that's this lesson, right? And Jesus was just giving you suggestions. He was not saying you have to say it this way. You can just come up with a different way of saying it, but it's just to remember that my only function is the one God gave me. Next one, my happiness and my function are one. All things that come from God are one. They come from oneness and must be received as one. Fulfilling my function is my happiness because both come from the same source. And I must learn to recognize what makes me happy if I would find happiness. All right, so in other words, fulfilling my function brings happiness. Why? Because that has been established as what my true nature is. If my true nature is to be happy, or happiness is my true nature, then anything that does not bring happiness, or brings misery, brings suffering, or brings upset, or whatever, that can't be my function, right? That can't be what I am, right? So if I'm holding on to a grievance, if I'm holding on to anything that I have to justify in my mind that yeah, I'm right, they're wrong, but really what I feel is a sense of despair, and I feel alone. I feel, whatever I may feel, consciously or unconsciously. I'm not in the happiness. I'm not in the joy. I've locked myself out, right? So I have to realize that fulfilling the purpose of learning to accept the atonement through forgiveness is what I really want. It's not something that is being forced on me. No one is forcing me. It's Jesus just saying, this is what you really are. So don't fight it. You're fighting it. You're resisting it. So I must learn to recognize what makes me happy if I would find happiness. Some useful forms for specific applications of this idea are, again, in italics, this cannot separate my happiness from my function. The oneness of my happiness and my function remains wholly unaffected by this. Nothing, including this, can justify the illusion of happiness apart from my function. So nothing that is happening need disturb our minds. We never need get disturbed. We can be in that place of equanimity. Equanimity means being in your quiet center. We could be in our quiet center all the time. We don't have to keep going into that, into the ego mind. We can just very quickly, more and more quickly, we can just let the ego go, right? We know what the ego is. We start to recognize the ego very quickly, and we don't give it credence. We don't give it our attention. We don't try to justify it. We just say that's the ego, and that doesn't work, right? That I'm not gonna attach to that egoic thought or egoic pattern of thinking, which is somewhat habitual, which is somewhat conditioned. But this is a deconditioning program. Jesus is helping us to decondition from the ego thought system, right? So we slowly but surely we step away from the ego, right? And we start to recognize what the ego is. Once we can recognize what the ego is, we can more easily separate it out and just say, that's ego. That's not it. That's not going to lead to happiness. That's not going to lead to peace. That's not going to help me to, if I keep endowing the ego with or let's just finish that thought. Endowing the ego with reality, which it really does not have. And if I keep thinking that the ego is me, which it's not, then I will remain stuck until I make a very firm decision that the ego is really not real, and I do not want the ego. The ego is not going to lead me where I want to go. Once we've made that decision, and we start to make that more and more constantly, continually, and we do it as a practice, because we need to do this as a practice. We need to repeat this because we very easily forget. But if we put it like at the forefront of our consciousness and we start to work with it, over time, what will happen is we will be more and more in our true self, right? And these days, people are talking about, they use language like, I want to live the most authentic version of myself or the highest version of myself. Well, this is what this is talking about as well. But it wouldn't necessarily the highest version of myself. It would just say myself, right? Because the ego is not myself, right? The ego is a totally false and illusory thought system. It's very real though from where we are right now, but ultimately it is completely insane and completely just goes nowhere. Right? It just is a circular. It will have us spinning in circles, whereas the Holy Spirit's thought system is like a spiraling up until we reach our, the highest ground, where we reach our true self, and it's not about. There is a sense in which we work through different versions of ourselves in the process. But when we get to our true self, then there's only one true self. Right? There's not different versions. There's only one. So anyway, I hope this helped today. This is lesson 83. We're doing the review. Lesson 84 is next. Love created me like itself, and love holds no grievances. We're going to get there soon. I'm going to do another video today where I talk about Helen and Bill going to Israel back in 1973, I believe it was, and going to the ACIM, the caves at Qumran. So I'm going to talk about that in a separate video. So meet me there if you're interested. Thank you so much. See you soon.